Welcome to Season 1, Episode 4 of the Dennis Manoloff Show, part of the Press Play Podcast Network. It's an honor and a privilege to be here once again. I wish I didn't have to start with this, but I have to start with this. Kevin Love on Monday night, his shenanigans against the Toronto Raptors forced me to open the show on a negative note. Late third quarter, 2-possession game, Cavs are down. Kevin Love's tired of getting pushed, and he got his knee scraped as well, but he's upset that he's not getting the calls. And when it comes time for the Cavaliers to inbound the ball, the referee passes him the ball, essentially, underhand fires it to him. And instead of Love inbounding under the baseline, he slaps at the ball to an incredulous Darius Garland. I mean, Darius Garland wasn't even ready for it. He didn't even see it probably at first glance, but a Raptor did. So one of the Toronto Raptors tracked the ball down in the corner and zipped the ball to a teammate, Malachi Flynn, who drilled a three-pointer. And all of a sudden, the Raptors have a lot more of a comfortable advantage because of Kevin Love's hissy fit. And that's exactly what it was. It was a hissy fit. It was a temper tantrum. And it never should have happened. It was unprofessional. The Cavaliers need to do more than what they said in the aftermath, which was, we're going to move on. Kevin apologized to, his team and the coaches and whatnot. Kevin Love should have been available to the fan or to the media so that he could apologize through the media to the fans for that petulant display, that lack of professionalism. And unfortunately for Love, it's not the first time post LeBron 2.0, or even, the first time since he was teammates with LeBron 2.0, that there were questions about his professionalism. Now, here's where I have to really get into the weeds with Kevin Love. I've never been a big fan of his, and that has run me afoul with plenty of people, okay? There are plenty of people out there who have gotten upset with me for my having the audacity to point out that I thought it was a big 2.5 with the Cavaliers in their glory days, not a big 3, because I was giving full credit to LeBron and full credit to Kyrie, but only half credit to Love. I thought Kevin Love was a beneficiary of the greatness of LeBron and to an extent Kyrie, and he wasn't an equal part in that dynasty attempted dynasty, because they only won one title, even though they got to 4 finals in 4 years, LeBron 2.0. Well, Kevin Love has a lot of fans, and they let me hear about it. Well, I tried to warn people along the way that Kevin Love is not all that in a bag of chips. When LeBron left and Kyrie had already been traded, and it was just Kevin Love as a member of the 2.5 club, I warned the Cavaliers, do not hitch your wagon to this dude. Do not sign him long-term. So what did the Cavs do? With 1 year left on his deal, they signed him to a 4-year, $120 million extension. So, of course, I was critical of that. I got more blowback. How dare you, jump all over Kevin Love? He's a star. He's waiting to spread his wings now that he's out from under LeBron and Kyrie. He'll go back to his glory days with the Minnesota Timberwolves when he was stuffing the stat sheet for bad teams. I said, no, I really don't think it's a wise investment. Well, I hate to say I told you so, but I told you so. I've been proven correct time and again. Kevin Love is in the midst of one of the worst contracts in all of professional sports when you consider how little he's contributed and how much he's getting paid. Kevin Love, in 3 seasons, post LeBron 2.0, through Monday night, has played in just 96 games. 96 games. He made $22.6 million in that final season of 2018-2019, $28.9 million in 2019-2020, and $31.2 million this year for 96 games played. And 3-point percentage in those 3 seasons, 36, 37, 33. Points, 17, 17, 6, and 11, 7. Rebounds, 10.9, 9.8, 6.4. This from a guy who's getting paid now $31 million and is guaranteed an average of $30 million the next 2 seasons. He's been a disaster. If he was a well-behaved disaster, you could almost stomach it because there are bad contracts on every team. But this contract is so bad, and his performance has been so mediocre to bad when he's on the court that you can't tolerate anything else. And yet he's unprofessional in this episode and some other episodes. I mean, this year alone, 18 games, 23 minutes, 39.9% field goal percentage, 33 from 3, 11.7 points, 6.4 rebounds, 2.3 assists, a terrible player efficiency rating of 14.66. What Kevin Love did on Monday night, if he were averaging 25 points, 15 rebounds, 5 assists, and playing every game or close to every game, you could live with that. A slap inbounds pass that went to the wrong team and turned into 3 points in the blink of an eye. But you can't live with it when Kevin Love barely can make it onto the court, and when he does make it onto the court, he's not very good. I went on Twitter on Monday night, and I criticized Love, and I said, a lot of you all were fooled about him being a leader. He's not a leader. As usual, I got blowback because of those Love defenders, and some of it, okay, I'll listen to it, but others were like, Kevin Love's had a good season when he's played. I mean, come on. You got to be kidding me. 39.9% from the field in the 18 games he's played, averaging 11.7 points and 6.4 rebounds. And we know he's not very good defensively. That's a starting point with Kevin Love. He's not good defensively. So he starts from a negative. He has to make up for the lack of defense, the lack of foot speed, the lack of height, the lack of length, the lack of rim protection. And he has to do that with Boku offensive numbers. He's been nowhere close this season. So Kevin Love has been a disaster. The Cavaliers tried to get rid of him. No takers. Why should there be takers? When the trade deadline had hit, Love was down. He was injured, and he wasn't producing anyway. So other teams were like, no thanks. And they weren't certainly willing to take on that guaranteed money. When I criticize Kevin Love, though, I have to offer a stipulation. I fully recognize that Kevin Love has well-publicized mental health issues. He has talked about them, specifically anxiety and depression. Unfortunately, I can relate to him on that front. I can't relate to him on the contract front. I can't relate to him on the athletic skills front because he's an NBA player, and I could only dream of being an NBA player. He's won a ring in 2016. I could only dream of winning a ring with any team that I loved growing up. But I can relate to Love on the anxiety and depression front. And here's what I will do. I will be empathetic and sympathetic to Love's situation. But it can't excuse everything. And that's how I live my life. I mean, I make a ton of mistakes. I don't sit there and go, every time I make a mistake or every time I do something boneheaded, well, it has to be tied to anxiety and depression. And that's where I feel like you are allowed to criticize Kevin Love when you see what he did on Monday night. You see how little respect he had for the game, for his teammates. He obviously felt bad about it because he apologized to them. So he didn't think it was no big deal. He knew it was a big deal. And by the way, it was national news all day today, Tuesday, as we tape, Tuesday, April 27th. But just because Kevin Love has a very serious mental disorder or mental situation with anxiety and depression, you can't gloss over everything he does or doesn't do as a basketball player. And that's why I think it is fair to criticize Kevin Love when he does this type of stuff. So what do the Cavs do from here? As I said, more than an apology is necessary. I mean, more than we're moving on from the Cavaliers side of it is necessary. They need to sit him. They need to bench him. They need to send a message to the rest of his teammates. And I know some of the young players on this team have Love's back most of the time, and they appreciate what he's been in the locker room. I'm not sure how, but they say they do. Regardless, it's got to come from on high. The Cavaliers hierarchy's got to say, this can't stand. We cannot allow this type of behavior by any of our players on the court, whether they're making $30 million or $3 million. And so Love needs to be punished for this. And, then you move on. But I can't just be, we'll move on. Well, he's back in the lineup the next game. All right, when we get back on the Dennis Manoloff Show, part of the Press Play Podcast Network, I'll do a quick look at where the Cavs stand at the moment.
Hey everybody, it's Sam Amico from Cavs on the Break NBA podcast. Be sure to give us a listen for all your Cleveland Cavaliers recaps, analysis, breakdowns, draft talk, free agency. The list goes on and on. Give us a listen, Cavs on the Break NBA podcast.
You've been pining, you've been waiting for Rega and Rhoda to get back together. We got you. Press Play Podcast. We're ready to go. We're going to have our podcast with everything that you want. Browns, Cavaliers, Indians, Ohio State, the national scene. Kenny Rhoda, Michael Regai back together again. Make sure you keep your ears open. It's happening right here on Press Play Podcast. See you then.
Welcome back to the Dennis Manoloff Show, part of the Press Play Podcast Network. This is Season 1, Episode 4. First segment, we talked about Kevin Love and his stupid actions on Monday night against Toronto that deserve punishment by the Cavaliers. And what a shame that Kevin Love still has 2 more guaranteed years on his 4-year, $120 million extension that he signed a couple of years ago. The Cavaliers themselves, 21-40 as I check the standings as we tape on Tuesday night, April 27th. My dream of a 10 seed has evaporated. It's over. Currently, the Washington Wizards occupy the 10 seed that gets you into the play-in tournament. That's 7-10 play-in in each conference. Wizards occupy it at 27-34, a full 6 games ahead of Cleveland. Even though Cleveland has 2 more games remaining in the season series with Washington, I don't see it happening for the Cavaliers, especially because they have Chicago and Toronto in between Washington and themselves anyway. So that dream has died. I went on these airwaves a couple of weeks ago saying I think the Cavs should shoot for the 10 seed. Didn't work out. It's another disappointing season, another losing season, another going nowhere type of season, at least record-wise, in seasons that don't involve LeBron James. I said at least record-wise because there have been glimmers of hope from this team. Yes, I am willing to acknowledge it. Even as disappointed as I am in their overall performance, in the 21-40 record, and no playoffs, no play-in, I got to say, this season, I've enjoyed watching Colin Sexton. He's nonstop energy, nonstop points. He's done a lot of good things. I've enjoyed watching the offensive development of Darius Garland, his backcourt mate. Is Sexton and Garland viable for the foreseeable future as a backcourt? I don't know. I don't even think the Cavs know, because there are too many issues defensively and because Sexton and Garland are not consistent three-point marksmen. But clearly, Darius Garland has taken positive steps on the offensive side. And he is, you can see him getting more and more comfortable. You can see him reading angles and rhythm and tempo. And he's got more than just a floater. So I've enjoyed watching Darius Garland progress as an offensive player. Sir Isaac Okoro, their first-round pick, their top 10 pick this past season, heading into this season. Okoro has looked good in spurts. He's far from a finished product, nor should he be. He's only 20 years old. But I've liked what I've seen from Okoro more often than not defensively, because he's had to handle some of the toughest players in the league, certainly some of the toughest players, that the Cavs face on a given team. And he's held his own. I mean, sometimes he's struggled, but that's to be expected from a rookie who happens to be 20. I mean, you hear the term young rookie, and it oftentimes is it's redundantly repetitive, but not in this case. Isaac Okoro truly is a young rookie, just like Darius Garland truly was a young rookie last year, and Colin Sexton 2 years ago. So in Sexton, Garland, and Okoro, I've seen promise. How they fit going forward, I'm not exactly sure, but I see them as potential building blocks. Are they cornerstones? Are they guaranteed to carry you to glory? No. But they're pieces. So is Jarrett Allen, who was legally stolen from the Nets in the blockbuster James Harden trade. I like Jarrett Allen at the center position. And he's very young as well. So those are four guys. I don't want to necessarily call them a core four, because that would be stealing from the Yankees of Rivera, Jeter, Posada, and Pettit. But it's a group, it's a quartet that I think you can win with. Is it guaranteeing you upper echelon Eastern Conference? No, but you can win with this group for now. You add complementary pieces such as Larry Nance Jr. And yes, progress was made this year for the Cavaliers. That's the good. The bad is we are coming up now on the end of the third season post LeBron 2.0. Another season where the record was terrible. Another season where there were no playoffs. This team has got to start winning. I wanted it to start in April of 2021. I wasn't so lucky. But next season, this team has got to start winning. It has to make a legitimate push for, 5, 6, 7, 8 seeds in the East. Because otherwise, what are we going to do? Will we be sitting here 4 years from now going, all right, season 7 of the rebuild, and we're still waiting on this or that or this or that? No. It's time to start winning. The Cavaliers need to get serious about it. Hopefully they hit in the draft. They get another nice piece in here. I don't know who it's going to be. I don't know how it's going to fit, especially with the albatross love hanging around your neck. But hopefully Kobe Altman and J.B. Bickerstaff can figure it out. And the message to this team coming back in the fall is you have to begin to treat this like you are in this for wins and not for development, even though they're still going to be young and they're still going to have growing pains. But they got to get the development out of their minds. They got to get the rebuild crap out of their minds and focus on trying to make the playoffs. All right, when we return to the Dennis Manoloff Show, I will talk about who I think the Browns will target in the 2021 draft.
Hi, my name is Jeremy Powell, co-host of the Oranges, Oranger, Browns podcast. Check us out anywhere you listen to podcasts. For all your Browns coverage, post-game, pre-game, anything you need Browns, you'll find it here on the Oranges, Oranger, Browns podcast.
Hey, it's Tito, host of the Premier Fantasy Podcast. Get all the news and analysis you need to dominate your fantasy league. I've been doing this as long as anybody in the business. I can help give you the edge in your leagues. It's the Premier Fantasy Podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dennis Manoloff Show, part of the Press Play Podcast Network. We are talking NFL draft. It is finally here, draft week. The first round unfolds Thursday night. Headquarters, Cleveland, Ohio. By the way, mega props to David Gilbert, Greater Cleveland Sports Commission. Without David Gilbert, the city of Cleveland, Northeast Ohio would be seriously in trouble because of all of what David Gilbert has done to bring events or help bring events to Cleveland. And he deserves as much props as anybody for the NFL draft in Cleveland. Browns have the 26th overall pick in the first round. And of course, millions of mock drafts have taken place on who the Browns will select. I choose not to go the mock draft route. Not because I'm thumbing the nose at any of the mock draft nicks, but because I figure I'm probably going to be wrong, just like most of those guys and gals. You never know what's going to happen at the top of the draft. All it takes is one or two picks to upset your entire first-round mock. So I generally steer clear of them, but I do take mental notes on who people have, the Browns targeting at 26, or whom they have targeting. When I looked at the Browns roster the other day, because I really wanted to try to home in on what I think Andrew Berry and Paul DePodesta, and to an extent Kevin Stefanski, are thinking about 26 overall. And obviously quarterback is not a need. Thank goodness for that. The Bake Show, backed up by Case Keenum. The Browns are in good shape there. Of course, running back is not a need with Chubb and Hunt. Wide receiver room is full. Everybody back, excited to see, except I'm going to say as one of the possibilities for the Browns. If not 26, then certainly they would have to look into it, in my mind, at 59 or 89 or 91. One of those first four picks that they're scheduled to make. A burner wide receiver. Even if he's a little guy, make sure he's fast as can be. Make sure that this guy can, you hear the cliche, take the top off the defense, but I'm thinking, of course, of Tyreek Hill. When the Browns season ended last season, it was at the hands of the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs won 22-17. The Browns caught a huge break when Patrick Mahomes, the all-world quarterback for the Chiefs, was knocked out in the third quarter because of a concussion. The Browns still didn't win the game. And here's the thing. For all the criticism the Browns defense received over the course of the season, and a lot of it was warranted, the fact of the matter in that AFC divisional game is that if the Browns had scored 23 points, just 23 points, they were going to advance to the AFC Championship game to face the Buffalo Bills in Orchard Park, New York. That's all it took. For all the defenses for me, and they didn't get Chad Henne down on the scramble and all that stuff. Right, but the Chiefs only scored 22 points in that game. You score 23, you win. One of the reasons I think the Browns didn't score 23, and one of the reasons they can get better offensively, is they need super duper speed somewhere among their position player or their skill position group. If you can find, I know Tyreek Hill is one of a kind pretty much in the NFL, but a Tyreek Hill light, somebody who's close to as fast as Hill and stretches the defense. So I think the Browns will keep an eye out for a fast receiver, even if that receiver is undersized. You think of an Elijah Moore type. Even if that receiver isn't super tall, the Browns have size at receiver. What they lack is top end speed. I'll say this: two names that would be tantalizing if I'm the Browns, and if these guys are still here at 26, Rashad Bateman of Minnesota and Kadarius Toney of Florida. I would think long and hard about one of those two guys at 26 before I automatically said, no, the receivers room's full. We got OBJ coming back. We'll be just fine. So that's the offensive side. And then the O-line, I know, producer director extraordinaire Chase Smith loves the O-line. He wants the O-line to be fortified forever. And I listen to the argument. I'll listen to his case. He's a very smart man. But I just don't think at 26 they go that route. When they know they have Wills and they know they have Bitonio and Treader and Teller and Conklin, and we know that they invested their 10th overall pick last year in Jedrick Wills Jr. And we're very happy with him. I'm not saying you can't get better on the offensive line. I just think that the Browns are going to say, we'll look somewhere else in this particular draft, at least at 26. So you move to the defensive side. Defensive tackle, I know the Browns have lost Larry Ogunjobi and potentially Sheldon Richardson. I mean, they could bring Richardson back as of right now. I don't think he's signed with anybody. So you would think, all right, they got to plug a hole at defensive tackle. I just don't know if this paradigm, this front office paradigm and the coaching staff is putting that much value in defensive tackles. And they would say they are. Okay, fine. Well, guess what? They proved it by getting Malik Jackson in here. Billings comes back after a year out. So I don't think they fill a defensive tackle hole at 26 unless there was a transcendent defensive tackle available, and I don't think there will be. Otherwise, he would have been gone by then. You look at the edges. They have Myles Garrett, and then on the other side, they brought in Takk McKinley, and they brought in Jadeveon Clowney. Porter Gustin is back as a rotational piece on the edge. You'd sit there and you go, wow, that should be enough, right? Well, not necessarily, because you can never have enough edge rushers. You can never have enough guys to get to the quarterback. And Jadeveon Clowney has had trouble staying on the field. Takk McKinley is no guarantee. Myles, you hope, is 100% after being slowed dramatically by COVID last season. But even if I grant you a full season of a dominant Myles, I've got question marks about Clowney and Takk. So bringing in another force off the edge can't hurt. And the way I look at it, two potential candidates come from the same program. Miami of Florida, Jalen Phillips and Gregory Rousseau. If one of those two guys or both of those guys is available, I think the Browns will have to think long and hard before they pass on that. Linebacker, I know as I've read the national mocks, listened to national analysts, that's been a popular place for a Browns selection at 26 or a popular position. People such as Jamin Davis of Kentucky have been mentioned. But I really like the Browns linebacker group. I know you say, well, they need a little upgrade on the off-ball linebacker, but I don't know that I'm looking at a transcendent player in that position. A guy who's worthy of 26 more so than an edge rusher. So I don't think they would go linebacker. Safety, I think they're set with John Johnson III, the big free agent acquisition, Grant Delpit coming back, and Ronnie Harrison. So that leaves corner. And I think cornerback is the place where the Browns are really, really, really going to have to think about taking the best corner available at 26. Why? Well, Denzel Ward is on one side, and we all love Denzel Ward in Cleveland. He's a lockdown corner. He's uber talented, but the fact of the matter is, if I'm going to wonder about Jadeveon Clowney's durability and availability, I've got to wonder about Denzel's. 37 games played in 3 seasons in the NFL. So Denzel Ward has yet to play 16 games, 13, 12, and 12. On the other side, well, I guess for now you put Troy Hill in as the number 2 corner because Hill has a resume and he comes from the Rams and he's played well. But ideally, you'd like Hill to be your slot guy, your number 3 corner, who has the ability to move outside, but he's a great slot corner. If Hill is the slot corner and Ward's the CB1, then CB2 is Greedy Williams. Well, guess what? Greedy Williams has played 12 games in his 2 seasons in the NFL, all in 2019, his rookie year. He was out all last season. There were questions about whether he was going to come back at all with the shoulder issue, the nerve, whatever it was. I hope to heck that Greedy Williams is 100% when he reports to camp. But we don't know enough about Greedy Williams as an NFL player. And I know I just got done saying at safety, the Browns are in great shape with Grant Delpit at safety, and he hadn't played because he was injured in, before he could even start his 2020 season. But at least there's more depth at cornerback than there is, at safety than there is at corner. And I don't think trusting Greedy Williams. And the other thing about it is you can never have enough corners because this is a passing league and you've got to be able to cover receivers. And so even if you're 4, 5, 6 deep at corner, you're in good shape. I mean, you're not overdoing it. And I see the Browns as thin at corner, untested on the one side with Greedy Williams. And therefore, if I'm the Browns and say, for example, Asante Samuel Jr. is sitting there, I'd have to think about it. Now, it's very possible that the Browns only put a first-round grade on Patrick Surtain II. Let me think about a couple other corners. Caleb Farley, maybe. Greg Newsome. Maybe they don't put enough first-round grades on corners to where they're all gobbled up in the first 20 picks, and the Browns say, you know what, we'll get a corner later in the draft. But if an Asante Samuel is there, if one of the corners from Georgia is sitting there, Eric Stokes or Tyson Campbell, if I'm the Browns, and by the way, J.C. Horn will be gone. That's another one. That was the other guy I was thinking of. I'm thinking Surtain, Horn, and Newsome will be gone. Farley might still be around. He's got the back issues, but he's a wonderful talent. I think Asante Samuel Jr. is still going to be there. And I'm thinking Stokes and Campbell will be there, recognizing that a lot of people have second-round grades on Stokes and Campbell of Georgia. But I think the Browns have to think seriously about bringing in a corner in the first round and at the very least the second round. All right. When we return to the Dennis Manoloff Show, part of the Press Play Podcast Network, I will talk about one guy, one NFL prospect that has me scratching my head in terms of why is he being critiqued as much as he is.
Hello, Brooks here with the Books with Brooks monthly book club podcast. We read one book a month and then we talk about it. Books like Stephen King's The Shining or Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. If you're on the hunt for book recommendations and enjoy sparkling conversation, come read along with us and then listen in.
Hey, it's JD from the Hyman Podcast. I created this podcast to have hard conversations. Conversations that make us human but are also wildly uncomfortable. Conversations that help give voice to the voiceless and to the marginalized. Now you can listen to the entire first season on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Consider this your personal invitation to join the conversation.
Welcome back to the Dennis Manoloff Show, part of the Press Play Podcast Network. Season 1, Episode 4 rolls on with one guy in the NFL prospect pool I just cannot believe is being critiqued to the extent that he is, at least from where I sit. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm overthinking this or, oblivious to all of the praise that's being heaped on him. But Justin Fields, quarterback, Ohio State. I just don't get the critiques and the criticisms. We know every prospect is going to be picked apart. Even Trevor Lawrence has been tweaked here and there. as great a prospect as he is. But what I don't understand is how a Justin Fields isn't viewed as right up there, if not even with the consensus second quarterback in the draft, or the guy that most people think is the second best quarterback in the draft, Zach Wilson of BYU. I'm not here to dog Zach Wilson. He's looked good in the tape I've watched. And I've appreciated the power arm and the foot skills and the quick release and the ability to create something out of nothing and make something out of broken plays. Just like I appreciated it watching Justin Fields up close for 2 years at Ohio State. What is it that Justin Fields failed to do on a football field for 2 years that has people, thinking, oh, Mac Jones of Alabama is automatically better as an NFL prospect than Justin Fields? Oh, you can't possibly think that Justin Fields is on par with Zach Wilson, and you probably shouldn't think he's on par with Mac Jones. And I'll tell you what, he might not even be as good as Trey Lance. Hold on a second. I mean, what more did you want Justin Fields to do in his 2 seasons at Ohio State? All I have to do is go back to the national semifinal of this past season. Ohio State 49, Clemson 28. Little Dabo do ya. Buckeyes pounce and punk Dabo. Big mouth Dabo in the national semifinal. All Fields did that day was go 22 of 28 for 385 yards, 6 touchdowns, 1 pick. Oh, by the way, 8 rushes for 42 yards. He dominated the game. And he was injured for parts of the season. But that national semifinal alone is a better game, especially considering the competition, than anything that Zach Wilson was able to do at BYU. And again, I'm not trying to dog Wilson. He'll be a perfectly fine prospect. Okay, great. He's number 2 to the Jets is what I'm told, guaranteed. All right, fine. But why in the world would number 3, the 49ers, picking 3rd after the trade up with the Dolphins, why in the world would they not go with Justin Fields? Why is it automatic that they're going to go with Mac Jones? And I'm not here to dog Mac Jones either. Mac Jones is a terrific player, had an awesome season. But, I mean, he's only thrown to the Heisman Trophy winner, Devontae Smith. He threw to Jalen Waddle. I mean, he's in a system that is, easily the best in the country. Alabama's the gold standard. Move over, Dabo. So, Mac Jones, he deserves a lot of credit. I hope he goes high in the draft. But if I'm the Niners at 3, I'm taking Justin Fields, and I'm not hesitating. I'm not even waiting for the allotted time. I'm running up to the podium with that card. And if you're the Niners, why are you trading up for Mac Jones? Is he truly that dynamic of a talent? And you're not trading up for Trey Lance. So I'm not going to buy all the smoke when it comes to the 3rd overall pick. I'm thinking the 49ers love Justin Fields. They just don't want to say it. Why? I don't know, because evidently the Jets love Wilson at 2, and obviously the Jaguars are going to pick Lawrence at 1. But Justin Fields, yeah, he's got issues, okay? Yeah, the whole idea of, does he go through his progressions enough? And is he able to get off the first read? And okay, fine, whatever. But I watched a dynamic talent at Ohio State for 2 years after the transfer from Georgia. I watched a natural-born leader. I watched a gritty, gutty competitor, a guy who played hurt, who refused to leave games unless you dragged him off the field. How about this one? I watched a guy who absolutely positively pounded the door down to play this past season. Don't forget about that. The Big Ten Conference shut down football. And Justin Fields was one who said, we're playing. We need to play. And the Big Ten reversed its decision, in part, in my belief, in part because of guys like Justin Fields, who said, we want to play. So not only did Justin Fields not opt out, and I don't begrudge anybody who opted out, I'm simply saying that Fields not only said, I'm not opting out, he helped a conference reverse a decision to actually play when it wasn't going to. That's how much Justin Fields loves the game. That's how much of a competitor he is. The physical skills are ridiculous. The foot skills are ridiculous. And think about what he could do under the tutelage of the great mind, Kyle Shanahan. No one has ever disputed Kyle Shanahan's football IQ. He's a genius, and I'm saying that in all sincerity. I'm not being sarcastic at all. Kyle Shanahan is brilliant. Imagine what Justin Fields can do being molded by Kyle Shanahan in that offense with those weapons. There's no reason Justin Fields can't beat out Jimmy Garoppolo right out of the chute. So I would be surprised if the 49ers don't opt for Justin Fields. And if they don't, somebody better gobble him up before Belichick does. Because unless the NFL wants to be looking up at Belichick again in a couple of years, maybe, as soon as 2 years, because who knows, is Justin Fields going to beat out Cam Newton if he goes to New England for that first year. But by 2022, if Belichick's got Fields, the Patriots are rolling again. And yeah, they got, Josh Allen to deal with the Bills, and they got Tua, and they'd have Zach Wilson. Well, there's my chance. Fields gets to go head-to-head with Wilson and the Jets. But please don't let Belichick get Justin Fields. Somebody else trade up to get him. The Bears, the Broncos, maybe even the Washington football team. Somebody beat Belichick to Fields if the Niners are going to pass. But I don't understand at all why Justin Fields isn't getting more love as we get ready for round 1 of the NFL draft in Cleveland on Thursday night, April 29th. All right, when we return, the final quick segment of the Dennis Manoloff Show, Season 1, Episode 4.
Want to hear more about your favorite TV shows and movies that are on countless streaming services?
Then listen to Up Next with your new favorite hosts, me, Kristen Aviles,
And me, Christina Walter.
Every other week, we'll highlight one genre, but 2 movies or TV shows, one old and one new.
We'll let you know what's hot and what's not from your favorite
or least favorite
streaming services.
And be sure to stay tuned to the end of each episode where we shout out an artist whose name you should know for their talent in the industry.
So follow us to stay up to date with your favorite hosts from Up Next,
a part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hi, my name is Sam Post, owner of Phenomwell CBD Store and PhenomwellCBD.com. That's like phenomenal, PhenomwellCBD.com. Tune in where we talk with experts about how the amazing hemp plant can make a difference for people's health and well-being from the Press Play Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dennis Manoloff Show, part of the Press Play Podcast Network. It's been an action-packed show, produced and directed by Chase Smith. I'll finish with this. The Oscars were Sunday night, and they were a ratings disaster, a ratings crater into, 7 digits, 9 million some viewers or whatnot. Just horrendous ratings. And here's the thing about the Oscars. They've been trending down for a while, but this is just crater material. And the excuses, oh, it's COVID, and their whole setup was just ridiculous. I don't buy the excuses. I think people are legitimately tired of being preached to at a movie award show. And by the way, if I had been running it, I would have said, why don't you go back into the theater, socially distance, and make it look legitimate instead of some cafeteria setup. You didn't have to do that. By now, we are far enough advanced in the COVID fight that you could just spread out in a theater and you wouldn't be harming anybody. But they made it look like they were doing it at a middle school cafeteria. Sound quality's terrible. They got people all over the world on these Zoom calls. Just an awful production. And yes, the obligatory political statements being made. And honestly, I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. This is where, I'm a conservative. It's no secret. But I've got plenty of liberal friends and acquaintances. And most of them agree with me on things like award shows. It's unnecessary to do the preaching. If you want to do the preaching on your own time, fine. But people tune in to the Oscars to listen and watch the Oscars. Who got the best movie? Who got the best director? Who got the best animation, the best soundtrack, and all that other stuff? Screenplay. We don't want to have the quote-unquote real-world issues rammed down our throats. But they keep doing it at the Oscars, and they keep chasing people away. And then they wonder why the ratings are down, or they're defiant about it and say, well, you know what? We know why the ratings are down, but we're going to keep doing it again. Never mind that we're chasing away people and potentially sponsors. And my bottom line on all this, my real world rant of the day is, hey, Hollywood, how about you figure out a way to get your ratings back on such things as the Oscars, or get more people to come to the theater even. And I know in the year of COVID, that's been very difficult. Yes, I get it. But how about you fix your own house before you come into my house or somebody else's house and start wagging your finger about whether I should vote for this guy or vote for that girl, or vote on this issue or not vote on this issue, whether I should take this political stance or that political stance, whether I should put a needle in my arm for a vaccination or not. How about you worry about your own craft? Get your own house in order. And once it's built back up and you've got Boku Oscar ratings and all these other things, and your movies are must-see and everybody's hopping in Hollywood, then you can come to me and start wagging your finger about all your other stuff, all your other political beliefs. Until then, I don't know, zip it. All right, thank you very much for listening to the Dennis Manoloff Show, part of the Press Play Podcast Network. It's been my honor to bring you Season 1, Episode 4.